Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge, and the waiting is almost over. Not the tariffs, but the waiting for the Fed. Jerome Powell, he comes our way at 2 p.m. Eastern today. Pete and I will tell you exactly what's going to happen at 2:01 p.m. right after this on the Rebel's Edge. Bam.
I'll tell you what, I think you're dead on that that opening, John. I think we've got some pretty solid ideas on what's going to happen at 2 and 2:01.
He's going to say, well, the tuna fish sandwich was it was tasty, and of course we had several kosher meals brought in as well, and overall, we think we're going to stick with the course, stay the course.
Stay the course.
We're not going to act too quickly on any of this stuff. Although I will say, Pete, that the good news is that the drop in interest rates back down to 4.28 is a good thing, and partly why we had such a big surge in mortgage applications a week ago.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No doubt.
So he is Pete Najarian, folks. I'm Jon Najarian. I'm out here at the Milken Conference and the Uncorrelated Conference, and I am enjoying the Hollywood Hills because we have a frat house up here in the hills, Pete, and it's been pretty fun and a lot of interesting people. We had, I think, the head of CalSTRS from, so she manages like freaking Pete, it's like trillions of dollars.
That's amazing.
For California retirement funds and things like that. Anyway, a bunch of really interesting stuff, but let's get right to Macro Minute, shall we, Pete?
Let's do it.
Macro, it is what I think I led with, and that is Treasury Secretary. He's going to be meeting with a Chinese delegation in Switzerland this weekend. There might be some progress in air quotes, but there's not going to be a deal, not yet. And mortgage applications in the United States surging by 11% last week. So that was good news, Pete, and that is now rather than something that's months down the road.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right, John. I mean, the idea that the applications surged the way they did, people getting excited about that side of it. I don't think that people should get overly excited either when we talk about these meetings with China. It's great. It's progress. It's something that needs to happen. But does that mean they're going to walk away this weekend and say, hey, we got a deal? I would say that's probably pretty far-fetched. I'd say that would be the 1% side of what we're looking at right now, with the 99% side of the Fed looking at the and the Fed tool telling us 99%. These guys are going to pause. End of story. And I think that's exactly right. And we probably would have to look out a little bit further in time before we'd see something where we'd see a cut. But for right now, it's now going to be up to Powell and what does he say? And I think that's going to be really big. It's always big, but I think that's going to be huge, John, is what are going to be what's the commentary? It's going to be tariffs. It's going to be all of that. And it's going to get people probably riled up a little bit, and hopefully he doesn't throw fear at them. So if he can deliver and talk about the tariffs and talk about maybe some of the negotiations, I think we're in a good spot. But if he goes a little bit too far, in other words, he stands there too long, that might be a problem.
Yeah, they really should have a limit to how long he can speak and what he has to address. Right. I think just like Pete said, folks, and Matt, let's take it to fantastic futures. Futures are down a little bit in terms of yield on the 10-year. The yield is down, which means the prices are up for the bond. And I think Pete's right. What's going to happen is that he is probably going to say, well, the slowing that we've seen isn't a shuddering, it isn't a stop, but it's definitely a slowdown. And if we have to address it in the future, we will. If he just said that, Pete, it'd be off to the races.
Yeah.
Because we have several more Fed meetings coming our way pretty quickly. And the fact that this one's a non-event, I think the others will be eventful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we talked about this before. I'm going to just get on it one last time. Early April, obviously Liberation Day, we were sitting around a 22 volatility, right, on the volatility index. We recently got all the way back down to that 22, and then we've reversed a little bit, John, and we're finding ourselves into a spot, and I think that it's going to move one direction or the other, but certainly sitting here closer to 24, 25 the last couple of days, and I think that basically just lets us know, hey, look, a lot of whatever the questions look like for Powell and how he responds to those questions, I think, will sort of give us an idea whether or not that volatility is going to pull back a little bit and get closer to 20 and maybe even get a lower than that. Or do we spike back up and get into the mid 20s, call it 26, 28, something like that, if there is a little nervousness out there. And it would depend on some of the commentary, I think, coming from right there from him, whether or not we actually bounce up like that. We certainly could, but I think that's why we're hanging right around 25 right now on the VIX.
Yeah, well, let's dive right into stocks, Pete, like Oscar Health, OSCR. They beat on EPS, earnings per share. They also beat on sales, also known as revenue. They outperformed the market pretty big so far this year, Pete. And so this one, which we did have unusual option activity, or UOA, in this one, they were buying, and guess what? They were right. The stock's up 27% today. That's in a single day, folks. And if you were in the stock, congratulations. Let's say you had 1,000 shares. It feels pretty good. But if you had the options that we saw unusual activity in, you're doing even better.
Yeah, well, this was just an unbelievable report, John. And we've had a few of those. And this is why, going back a few months, that's why I said, when we start to get back into the earnings season, I think that's something that can actually buoy these markets. And I think we're seeing that play out right in front of us right now. Oscar's a pretty interesting one. As you said, the stock had a major move to the upside today, but it's still well off the 52-week highs, John. But every single number that they were able to deliver on, they delivered in a big way. I mean, when you look at the earnings beat, that was huge. Over a year ago, it was only 62 cents, and now they're putting up 92 cents. They were expecting 83 cents. Those are all big numbers. The free cash flow that they've got of $1 billion. Then you look at cash to debt, they're sitting with $2 billion. This is a company that I think is really positioned well right now. I'm a little bit surprised that it got hit as much as it did, John. And quite frankly, I mean, you look at the year-to-date performance, it's up 20%. This stock has done a really, really nice job, I think, so far this year. But I think they can go a lot higher than they are right now. I'm not saying you chase it, but I think when you look at these numbers and everything that they talked about, it was impressive everywhere. I mean, you could not find a flaw this particular quarter.
Well, let's go into another one, Pete, that is seeing a huge upside surge. That's Angi's List, or ANGI. It's up 30% so far today. Again, they beat on revenue and the stock jumped. It's home services online marketplace. I think a lot of you know what it is. Angie's List. She basically started rating contractors that did a good job. And then it sort of spread virally, and then it became a stock instead of just one lady's passion about it. And it's now about a $700 million entity, Pete. So it's a real deal. And the operating margins are still pretty darn strong. So ANGI, thumbs up to that.
Yeah, those operating margins, John, up 8% year over year. I think that's a big number. You also look at the revenue that they were able to put up there. It's interesting. They did have a strong revenue beat, but if you go back, and this is something you and I talk about all the time, the year over year, they slipped about 19%. So if you're looking for anything to pick at, and as far as a negative side of things, I think that would be one of them. And they also mentioned one other thing in the report, John, that I think was really important. They said they're struggling with new customer acquisition. So this is great. They had a great quarter. Stocks made a really nice move to the upside. I think it was up as much as 31% last I looked, but it was pretty outstanding move. But you do have to wonder about the future just a little bit. I mean, if they're slowing down on the customers and that starts to be something that grows even more, that could be problematic. We'll see if that plays out. These numbers that they put up, again, really, really impressive, especially the earnings. They absolutely crushed it. They were expecting the earnings to be in negative territory, and meanwhile, they gave a 30 cents is what they put up. So pretty impressive, actually, when you look at the quarter.
Well, then we've got one, Pete, that ain't that impressive. It's certainly good for everybody who has puts because it was $100 and some odd stock yesterday where it closed. It opened at 88 and it kept going down another 10% till it was right around 80, which is more or less where it is at mid-session, Pete. They reported sales that were below estimates. It's a radio pharmaceutical company, and they do things for clinicians, for heart, for cancer, for all kinds of treatments and therapeutics. And boy, missing this badly by about 7.5%. That's a big miss. And the stock is not at the 52-week low, Pete, but it ain't far off.
And maybe it'll establish a new 52-week low, John, because this was really about, we talked about how great the quarter was for Oscar. Just flip that whole thing around and it's that bad for Lantheus. I mean, it's unbelievable. They missed on the revenue. They missed on the earnings. The revenue guidance missed as well. Margins were down. Free cash flow was down year over year. There was nothing that you could pick out and say, yeah, but. And I think that's why the stock is getting hammered as much as it is. And it's a heck of a lot closer now to the 52-week lows than the 52-week highs. There's no doubt about that. By the way, those 52-week lows are 74. I think the last week I looked, at least, it was around 82 or 83, something close to that, John. So it isn't that far away. And I'll tell you what, there is no reason to try to reach down and say, you know what, they've overdone it. I don't think they have overdone it. I think this thing can get down to that level because holy smokes, I couldn't find anything that looked good in that report.
Well, and then we do have UOA, Peter, unusual option activity in this one. For those of you who are watching the show for the first time, we get it on both calls, which are bullish, and puts, which are bearish. They were buying puts in this one, Pete, at the 100 strike, and they were paying, I think, about $4 for them, something like that. And they went to $18 or something. So
unreal.
That is a pretty good performance. So all the folks that are like thumping their chests, oh, I was short this thing, I made, whatever, $19 on the short. Well, you could have done an awful lot better if you were in the options, because you could have turned a $3 or a $4 option into $17.
Not bad.
Not bad. All right, let's do Sarepta, Pete. Serepta, they had this double whammy because, man, this was the stock, Pete, was in the 60s, and all of a sudden they had some bit of bad news, and then they had even worse news. So this stock was down yesterday, and then it fell apart again today. They have a critical Food and Drug Administration appointment, somebody who does not like what they do. And that's manifesting itself into some pretty aggressive selling today, Pete.
Well, and when you look at a stock, John, like this one, where the high, the 52-week high is 173, and the 52-week low was established today at 36.90, holy smokes. I mean, first of all, that's an unbelievable spread. And second of all, the fact that it's all the way down to that level, and it probably should be. They talked about the guidance being significantly lower than what they had already put up in the forecast. They also talked, and this is what I think hurt them the most, was they talked about their expenses as well, and those expenses going up, 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 up. So they've got some real problems right now that they're having to deal with. And I'll tell you what, I think they've got a deep pipeline. They've got a lot of things on the positive side, but too many things on the negative side. This would not be one where I'd say, you know what, at $36, it's an absolute buy. I would say keep an eye on this thing, and if it starts to turn and starts to move to the upside for whatever reason, and then you can find out what those reasons are, then maybe this is something to look at. But otherwise, this is hands off, because they told us themselves that things aren't looking that great by what their guidance looked like, and I'm listening to them, and I ain't touching it, John.
Well, I can't blame you for that. It seems like Sarepta, it's like a binary bet all the time, Pete. Yeah. They've either got great news and the stock just zooms, or they've got horrible news like this, and the stock just sags, and the shorts do feast on that, of course. Well, we thought we'd address a little bit about Bill Belichick and Jordan, his girlfriend. This
Look
guy,
at the guy. Look at the guy who's going to give it for us.
he's going to break it down for you, folks. So let's give it a listen here on Pete's Red Zone Sports.
Shirt.
Well, you can see I've worn this one for a while.
Yeah, you look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So look, you got that lake house in Winnipesaukee. We're the best walleye spots.
Not talking about this.
Respectfully, I'm
We're
not
the
asking
best
you.
walleye.
I'm asking your grandfather,
I'm asking your grandfather.
and I'm the next pope. Wait, is this your girlfriend?
This is a girl.
Oh no. Oh jeez. Wow. Who decided this was a good idea?
Yeah, well, it was a mutual decision.
So you both decided to take this picture.
It was a mutual decision.
Uh-huh.
You know,
I've never been too worried about what everybody else thinks.
Bill, if you're in trouble, just give me a sign. Oh my gosh, that's a smile. More serious than I thought. Bill, listen, I will call the police and report her for you. Tell me where the walleyes are on Lake Winnipesaukee.
Not talking about this.
Don't you have homework to do?
that was a good one. Some of them are, okay. That one was damn funny. And I'll tell you what, I'm laughing so hard, John, that my guess is that if I go to a North Carolina game this year, and I planned on doing it, and maybe, I know enough people on the team now and the coaching staff and stuff to maybe hang around with those guys on the field. I think I just lost my field pass.
And that was one of the kinder takes on Jordan and Bill Belichick, Pete, because, an awful lot of people think he's almost like a prisoner.
Well, if there is one question you ask, and forget right now about, her, how about the sweatshirt with the kind of torn up in here and stuff? You just kind of wonder sometimes or whatever. But you know what? I'm sure people can look at me and go, well, you're saying a lot. You got this big stupid thing here. You got this or that or whatever. So whatever, you know what? But it's funny. That was damn funny. All right, John. I was going to jump into some of the stuff that's going on in NCAA college football because general managers, this is a big deal. It's the fastest growing industry in college football. And to give you a bit of an idea, they just had a meeting out in Indianapolis at the convention center because they had so many people there. And they had 300 attendees. They had 15 GMs. They had player personnel folks from all over the place, recruiting staffs from at least 30 some odd programs. It gives you a little bit of an idea of what's going on in college football, how it really is turning into pro football, because not only do you have to deal with the NIL and all the money and everything else that goes into it, but now you've got general managers, some of them coming from the NFL that are becoming a big part of this. As a matter of fact, when you look at what are they doing, John, what they do is these general managers, they've got to help with the roster. You've got 100, 110 people on the roster you've got to deal with. You've got to scan the portal constantly. You've got also this big settlement, John, between the House and the NCAA settlement. $20.5 million is going to be going to schools annually. And there is other monies out there that could be a part of this as well. So it's unbelievable. I don't know if these guys were there, John, but we've got Ron Rivera, the GM of Cal. You've got Andrew Luck at Stanford. Bill Belichick, what was the very first hire Bill Belichick made? It was not another coach. It wasn't an OC or a DC. He went out and got a general manager. So I think that just says a lot about what's going on in the game today. And I'm not talking basketball. I'm not talking the rest of the sports. These, in many cases, are general managers just for football. And that's how they've designated this whole thing. And that $20.5 million, I guarantee you this, a very large percentage goes to the football program as opposed to the rest of the sports. And so it's really become a big deal in this revenue share and everything else. But what do you think, John? As a matter of fact, there's a guy at Texas Tech, John, making $1.58 million a year. He has a 3-year contract down there, James Blanchard. So gives you a little idea how important they feel like this is because they're willing to pay that kind of money.
Well, sooner or later, Pete, you're going to get one of those jobs, I bet. And the fact that they're $850,000, I'm not saying that's the average because there are a heck of a lot of football programs, but if you just took the D1 and you took the big, the big programs in D1, I guarantee they're all between 500,000 and $1 million right now. Mm-hmm. And like you just said, Pete, some of them are over $1 million.
Yep.
Alabama, their guy is, I think, 825,000. So Because the coach can't do everything. And they do need, the coach could say, for instance, hey, we got this guy in the portal. He really looks good. We love the way he played at wherever, UCLA. We're going to get him here to take Nico's spot at Tennessee. But after that, after the coach says that, then a general manager is the one that has to allocate and decide, okay, we got this much NIL money, or I might need to go out and get more so we can sign this guy or whatever. I still think, Pete, that eventually it might go towards that 20 mil that you're talking about annually, plus a share of the TV contract and the live gate at the stadium. I mean, some of these stadiums, like Tennessee, like Michigan and Ohio State, are between 100,000 and 110,000 people. You put those guys in there, and you're not talking about a $5 ticket either. You put 110,000 people in a stadium at, let's just say, $30, Pete. It's a real number. The live gate's 3 million plus, and then you've got all the concessions and parking and all the rest. I think if they start parsing some of that into the programs, rather than just going to deep-pocketed guys that are willing to back it, it would be a little more fair. But we all know not everybody has 110,000 seats.
Right.
So it's got to be a combination of things to make it a little more fair.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and I think it's a neat item. They need these general managers to take some of the pressure off of the head coach, and a lot of these head coaches, the first guy they have to go to, John, is the general manager, not the AD. They got to go to the general manager if they have an issue about whatever it is. So there's a lot changing in college sports as we speak. By the way, NFL, quietly, and I know that we always are looking at various things, different things or whatever, but I've been watching the Dallas Cowboys, and I find it really interesting because there's so much negativity that always gets thrown at Jerry Jones and all the rest of this stuff. And I'm not one of those guys. I have never been one of the guys who attacks Jerry Jones for what he does. The guy actually is probably one of the very few owners who ever played football. And so I you know what? I respect what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. And I think they've done some stuff in the offseason, John. How about if I give you this? So they got a brand new head coach in Brian Schottenheimer, right? Now, he's been part of the Dallas organization, but he's going to be the head coach now. They obviously got rid of the previous coach after a couple of years of that, and they expected more and they couldn't get there. Who do they got at quarterback? They got the quarterback situation just fine with Dak. Dak is the guy that they're happy with. Obviously, he didn't get to play every game last year. He had some injuries and this, that. But what they've done personnel-wise, when you look at what they did in the draft, John, they did everything that you should do, I think, if you're a team that's going in the right direction. Offensive line, edge rusher, linebacker, and quarterback. That was what basically, it's almost in order who they picked in the first few picks that they had. So I think that they're on the right direction there. CeeDee Lamb is a great wide receiver. But when you've got a great wide receiver, sometimes you need somebody on the other side. George Pickens, they just signed out of Pittsburgh. And that guy is a freak show. He's an unbelievable athlete, great guy, probably wanted a little bit more money, and the Cowboys were willing to do it. They made that deal. And I'll tell you, you start looking at what the Cowboys have done in free agency, the draft, and now again with essentially a free agency, a trade. I think the Dallas Cowboys have done a lot more in the offseason than a lot of people really recognize, because it wasn't a huge, colorful draft for them. They went for an offensive lineman. People don't always know anything about the offensive lineman, right? They got a big, huge son of a gun out of Alabama, John, that'll probably be there for the next 10 or 12 years. So I think they did the right thing there. They went with the edge rusher, like I say, and cornerbacks, linebackers. I think these guys have put themselves into a really, really good position, and just figured I'd bounce it off you. Do you think that I'm overreading this right now for the Dallas Cowboys? I like where they are.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would say this, Pete, I was going through that roster today. There are only three players that played for Jason Garrett. He left the team in 2019. So in other words, they have made a real move toward youth. And we know Micah Parsons is great. We know CeeDee Lamb is great. And, by the way, like you said, having two edge rushers, because Micah Parsons is on one side and he can play the middle too. Yeah. But, obviously he loves to come off the edge. and having two of those guys is a nightmare for teams that they face. And you're right about Pickens too, Pete. But the fact that, here it is 2025 and the last coach prior to, 2 coaches ago, Jason Garrett, left in 2019. Only 3 players played for him. So the rest of these guys, for the most part, including free agents, are really, really young. So that bodes well for what they're building for the future, and putting a few people, like you said, Pickens in there is going to be, real key to them, I think, turning this thing around. Because Dallas can't just go, whatever, 13-3 or whatever, 11-6 or whatever it might be. They can't just do that over and over again and not make it in and not make it through the playoffs, because those fans, there's a lot of them that haven't been, that weren't born the last time the Cowboys won anything.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Yeah, well, I think Jerry's still actively involved in this whole thing, and I think that they actually have put together a really good squad. Doesn't mean anything yet because it's early and everybody's got to get together and figure it all out, but I'll tell you what, I think they got a lot of pieces in place right now in Dallas. It looks good.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. I'm going to be flying back to Puerto Rico tomorrow, so it's going to be Pete and Justin on the Rebels Edge. I know Pete and Justin are looking forward to that, and I'll be watching from the airplane, Pete. So have a great day. By the way, they'll be coming your way at 1 p.m. tomorrow, folks. Bang.